Today, I want to share a story that digs deep into the heart of family dynamics, exploring the impact of favoritism and the emotional scars it can leave in its wake. This is a personal tale that many might resonate with, filled with the intricacies of sibling relationships and the job of being a parent. I want to introduce you to two sisters, Clara and Serena, and their complex family environment that was dramatically altered by loss. Eleanor, the matriarch of the family, was a woman of captivating strength. She was the emotional anchor who nurtured her two daughters, Clara and Serena. Equally, from their earliest memories, Eleanor ensured that her daughters felt loved, cherished, and equally important. Her calming, gentle voice was a constant source of reassurance, her laughter a melody that filled their home. But tragically, when Clara was just 15 years old, Eleanor passed away unexpectedly, leaving an immense hollow void that engulfed their family. Life without her felt like navigating a ship in a relentless storm, lost and without direction. In the aftermath of Eleanor's death, Clara's father, Arthur, struggled under the weight of this loss. As he mourned the love of his life, he attempted to fill the emotional gaps left behind, but it inadvertently led to a troubling dynamic between the sisters. Torn between grief and his desire to console, Arthur began to show considerable favoritism towards Serena, who was 2 years older than Clara, adopting a golden child mentality that would come to define their family interactions. Serena, usually vibrant and dramatic, thrived on the attention she received from their father as she plunged deeper into her role of the beloved daughter. She had always been charming, painting her world in broad strokes of charisma, yet beneath the surface was a growing self-absorption. Rather than seeking to mature and take on responsibilities, she frequently exaggerated minor ailments or feigned emotional crises, positioning herself as the fragile artist requiring special treatment. Clara watched as Serena expertly maneuvered their father's affections, garnering sympathy when she encountered the slightest inconvenience. In this new family paradigm, Clara became the responsible sister. Now at 29, she often took on Serena's neglected chores, absorbing the household responsibilities that Serena claimed were exhausting to her artistic spirit. Each task she completed, every to-do list item she fulfilled, deepened Clara's frustration, but her attempts to voice her concerns met a wall of dismissal from Arthur. He insisted that Serena was simply an artist needing more understanding. It was as though his grief had morphed into a pathological need to shield Serena, while Clara's valid feelings faded into the background, neglected and unacknowledged. Clara soon learned to navigate this new family dynamic quietly, living a life of grace beneath the surface tensions. She cultivated a polite but strained relationship with her father, one characterized by passive aggression. The resentment simmered just below her outward demeanor, surfacing in quiet moments when Clara would roll her eyes in response to her father's unwavering support of Serena's emotional manipulations. However, she never directly confronted him, fearing the rift it might cause in their already fragile family structure. This narrative of favoritism became the fabric of Clara's life, crafting a tapestry of unspoken frustrations and quiet sacrifices. Clara longed for her father's acknowledgement of her efforts, but his attention remained firmly fixed on Serena. This painful reality forged a bond between Clara and her own responsibilities, shaping her into a self-reliant woman, even while she quietly mourned her relationship with her father. As we move forward, we will explore Clara's quest for independence, her journey through university, and the stark contrast of her life alongside Serena's struggles. But first, let us pause to reflect on how the shadows of childhood can shape our adult lives. How do we break free from the expectations and burdens placed upon us? And how do we find our own voices in the midst of familial chaos? These questions will echo throughout Clara's journey, a resonant theme you will see unfold as her story progresses. At the age of 20, Clara made a pivotal decision that would shape the trajectory of her life. With bare essentials packed in 2 suitcases and a heart full of hope, she moved to a different state to attend university. She had chosen a highly competitive architecture program, a path that ignited her passion and creativity, and served as both an escape and a rebirth. Leaving her family behind, especially the suffocating dynamic with her father and sister, felt like shedding a heavy, uncomfortable cloak she had worn for far too long. For the first time, Clara genuinely felt the dust of freedom flutter around her. As Clara delved into her studies, she flourished. She discovered an environment that rewarded her diligence and creativity, allowing her innate talent to blossom. Her professors recognized her potential, and her peers soon gravitated towards her for guidance and support. This newfound confidence led her to meet Liam, a kind and supportive landscape architect, during a student competition. Their connection grew strong and genuine, broaching into a 7-year relationship built on mutual respect, love, and ambition. Together they envisioned their future, a shared life that promised warmth and understanding. In stark contrast to Clara's journey, Serena found herself stuck in a downward spiral of her own making. At 22, after a lackluster attempt at various entry-level jobs, Serena decided to leave the corporate world behind and pursue her dream of becoming a social media influencer by establishing an online boutique and lifestyle brand. Her vision seemed vibrant and full of promise, yet it was marred by negligence and the absence of a solid plan. Serena charged into this venture with the charm and charisma that had always characterized her. But her effort remained fleeting, and her lack of business acumen became painfully evident. By the end of that year, Serena's dream venture crumbled, leaving behind a trail of debt and disappointment. Unemployed and financially strapped, she was left with no choice but to retreat back into their father's home. This retreat not only knocked the wind out of her dreams, it also stalled Arthur's long-anticipated retirement plans and turned what should have been a haven into a grounded pit of perpetual drama. From her own successes, Clara observed the consequences of Serena's choices with a mixture of sympathy and frustration. She could not fathom how their father continuously enabled Serena's behavior, believing that her artistic spirit shielded her from accountability. Clara believed that Serena needed a wake-up call, a dose of tough love, as she would call it, to step away from the cycle of dependency. Yet Arthur's unwavering support for Serena's emotional struggles painted a stark contrast to Clara's independence. Arthur frequently echoed the phrase that Serena was simply an artistic soul in need of more understanding. This sentiment echoed in Clara's ears like an irritating melody she could not escape. She felt the weight of resentment build as each passing day in her father's home turned into a reminder of how their familial bond had warped over the years. Clara longed for a candid chat with her father about his favoritism, yet the fear of breaching this brittle bond restrained her voice. Instead, she became adept at masking her frustration, often spinning her wheels of anger in silence. In moments of reflection, Clara would find herself musing over her relationship with her father. She felt a great chasm forming, one that widened with each dismissive comment he made regarding her responsibilities toward Serena. The ground beneath her feet, once sturdy and supportive when she pursued her dreams, felt increasingly unstable. Clara knew she was treading a fine line, trying to balance her compassion while monitoring her own emotional well-being. As the years quickly passed, the remnants of her childhood and her family's expectations began to shift. Clara continued forging her path, striving for independence. However, she could sense the looming specter of Serena's self-indulgence threatening to throw her off course whenever they did cross paths. The contrast between the values Clara embraced and the entitlement Serena exhibited only intensified Clara's resolve to remain distant. Now, as we turn the page to the next chapter in this story, we will witness the events that catalyzed a series of conflicts between the sisters, bringing their struggles to a head. These moments will reveal the intricate dance of family loyalty and personal ambition that will ultimately challenge and reshape their relationship forever. Will Clara's journey toward independence culminate in a bittersweet farewell from her family, or will Serena find the strength to break free from her cycle of dependence? As these questions linger, we delve deeper into themes of love, rivalry, and the complexities of familial responsibility. In the realm of emotions, few events can strike as deeply as the loss of a beloved pet. For Clara and Serena, that heart-wrenching moment arrived with the unexpected death of Buddy, Serena's cherished golden retriever. Buddy had been more than just a pet. He was a companion, a source of comfort, and a piece of their childhood, intertwined with memories of laughter and warmth. His sudden passing ignited a cascade of emotions that enveloped the family, but what unfolded in the aftermath would expose cracks in their already fragile dynamics. Serena's grief was palpable and intense. Her sorrow poured forth in torrents, overshadowing the complexities of their shared familial relationships. In a matter of days, the house transformed into a shrine dedicated to Buddy, adorned with photographs and mementos that encapsulated a lifetime of shared experiences. It became a space where sorrow coalesced with melodrama and where the echoes of Serena's performative grief blanketed any attempt at normalcy. She languished in bed, refusing to eat or even step outside, immersed in a cycle of mourning that felt both authentic and exaggerated. While Clara harbored genuine sympathy for her sister's loss, her reality painted a very different picture. At the heart of Clara's world, wedding preparations loomed. Her engagement to Liam buzzed excitedly in the backdrop of her life, an event meant to be celebrated filled with joy and love. Yet amidst the excitement, Clara wrestled with the impending weight of balancing her own happiness against her sister's spiraling grief. As Clara meticulously planned each detail of her autumn wedding, she could not shake the gnawing feeling of obligation to support Serena through this tumultuous time, even though her sister had often prioritized herself over Clara throughout their lives. In an effort to reach out, Clara formally approached Arthur with a request that should have been joyous. She asked him to walk her down the aisle, anticipating his eager acceptance. They had shared countless moments, and Clara longed for this significant connection to be honored. However, when Arthur's voice broke through the static of her expectations, it bore the heavy weight of unexpected rejection. He gently explained that Serena needed him, and that she had planned a substantial memorial dedication ceremony for Buddy at a local community park, the very day of Clara's wedding. Clara felt her world tilt on its axis as her father's words sunk in. He recited Serena's narrative. She is simply too fragile to face this moment alone, and I must be there for her. It was as if their entire family dynamic was laid bare under the bright light of parental favoritism. Clara, already wounded by the years of dismissal and envious indulgence handed to Serena, felt her heart sink. What Arthur framed as his duty to his grieving daughter felt very much like yet another affirmation of Clara's role as the family's second choice. As anger swelled within her, Clara could not contain the bitter resentment that had been brewing for years. The juxtaposition of celebrating one daughter's life milestone against the backdrop of another's self-indulgence felt like an unforgivable betrayal. Fueled by an intoxicating mix of hurt and rage, she abrupt her call, disconnecting the conversation with a chilling finality. She would no longer tolerate the chains of emotional manipulation that had been forged by familial ties. The ensuing days were a battle of conflicting emotions. Clara oscillated between despair and fury, feeling abandoned in a moment that should have been filled with joy and anticipation. She contemplated reaching out to Liam, but her heart felt too heavy. Instead, the walls of isolation closed in on her, making her feel like a stranger in her own life, suffocated by the choices of her family. She had longed for a moment to make her father understand the emotional toll of his enabling and callousness, yet every time she tried to voice her frustration, it seemed to crumble into silence. In the depths of this emotional turmoil, a transformative reality began to crystallize for Clara. She realized that she could no longer allow Serena and Arthur's choices to dictate her well-being or happiness. The wedding, once an emblem of joy, was now tinged with a sense of rebellion against the incessant cycle of their toxic family dynamics. Clara understood that she was not required to remain subservient to Serena's emotional whims or Arthur's misguided sense of obligation. The path forward demanded clarity and conviction, a choice to set boundaries for her own peace. As Clara stood on the precipice of her wedding day, grappling with the shadow of familial expectations, the blurring lines of loyalty and independence began to coalesce. Clara's heart resonated with a newfound strength, bolstering her resolve to confront the years of emotional neglect. The landscape of her life was shifting, and in its wake loomed an important question: how would she redefine her relationship with her family, and what sacrifices was she willing to make to honor her own path? As we delve into the next chapter of their tumultuous journey, the events that follow will trigger irrevocable changes, forcing both sisters to confront their struggles and unravel the consequences of their choices. Will Clara's refusal to yield to familial pressures lead to liberation, or will it ignite further rifts, deepening the divides within their family? In the aftermath of Clara's heartbreaking rejection by her father, a flame of rebellion ignited within her. The simmering anger, long buried beneath years of familial favoritism, began to bubble to the surface. Clara realized that to reclaim her sense of agency, she needed to push back, not just in a reactionary manner, but with intention and a desire for real change. As she navigated her emotions, She also recognized that this moment could make waves, perhaps even shatter the toxic dynamics that had shackled her for far too long. In her mind, Clara plotted a way to express the pain and frustration that had built up over the years. She decided to approach the situation with a mix of vengeance and defiance. It was immature, perhaps even petty, but she felt the need to send a message. If Arthur and Serena could manipulate her emotions so freely, then Clara was more than capable of returning the favor. She quickly recalled her father's distant cousin, Silas, a man known for his eccentricity and unapologetic nature. As much as Arthur tried to steer clear of Silas, Clara knew that her father would hate the idea of him crashing a family gathering. Clara reached out to Silas, excited by the prospect of bringing him into the fold. She explained her predicament, letting him in on the plan to make a bold statement on her wedding day. Silas, delighted by the chance to push her father's buttons, enthusiastically agreed to walk Clara down the aisle. As Clara drafted the announcement for her wedding planning blog, a wave of empowerment washed over her. Despite Maya, her best friend, advising her to reconsider, Clara felt a rush of freedom. In her heartfelt post, she warmly described how honored she was that the wonderful and adventurous Silas will be walking me down the aisle, representing the true spirit of family. The very act of declaring her decision publicly, a declaration of independence, felt exhilarating. Clara did not just want her wedding day to be about joy and celebration. She wanted it to serve as a monument to her reclaiming control over her life. Within hours, her father's texts flooded in, each one more furious than the last. Arthur's anger reverberated through each message, a torrent of disappointment and humiliation. The indignation dripped from his words as he offered to convince Serena to reschedule the memorial for Buddy. If only Clara would let him fulfill the role she had originally planned for him. Clara could almost hear his pleading voice, desperate for reconciliation, but it could not mask the years of favoritism and neglect. Clara's resolve only strengthened. She refused to capture the essence of her wedding day in a veil of familial dysfunction. "You made your choice, Dad. You had your chance. Now you are getting a taste of your own medicine," she replied tersely. Each tap of her fingers against the screen felt like a measured release of the years of hurt and disappointment. With the situation escalating, Arthur's tone shifted. His messages turned tearful, infused with accusations, calling her cold-hearted and unfeeling. He claimed Clara lacked compassion for her grieving sister, insisting that she was ruining everything. Reading his words only reinforced Clara's conviction. For so long she had stood in the shadow of her father's manipulations, always playing second fiddle to Serena's whims, but she was finally stepping into the light, refusing to play that role any longer. As her wedding day approached, Clara contemplated how she would walk down the aisle, boldly and independently. The notion of having Silas accompany her now felt like another layer of manipulation, an attempt to please the whims of a man who would never truly understand her pain. Instead, Clara made the resolute decision to walk down the aisle alone. This act stood as a powerful symbol of her newfound self-reliance. When she texted Arthur one final time, stating clearly that he could attend as a guest, but would have to decide between his daughter's wedding and what he had framed as his duty to Cecilia, she felt unburdened. If Arthur chose the former, she would cut off all contact with him permanently. The stone-cold silence that followed from Arthur felt almost deafening. No more messages arrived from her father, and Clara was unsure how to interpret that absence. Was it relief? Was it sorrow? Perhaps both. In that moment, Clara realized she was crafting a new narrative for herself, one that was unapologetically self-directed and unwilling to bow to expectations held by a family steeped in conflict and manipulation. In the days leading up to her wedding, Clara began to mentally prepare not just for the ceremony, but for the emotional journey that awaited her. Enveloped in the love and support of Liam's family and friends, she found comfort in the realization that she was forging her own path, no longer tangled in the web of her sister and father's destructive dynamic. Clara made her peace, ready to embrace both the wedding and the symbolic liberation it represented. The day Clara had envisioned since she was a child had finally arrived. The morning sun cast a warm glow over the landscape, illuminating the venue that she and Liam had meticulously chosen for their wedding. Clara looked radiant in her flowing white dress, but the joy she should have felt was overshadowed by a nagging tension in her chest. Moments before the ceremony began, as she stood surrounded by her closest friends and bridesmaids, Clara felt a profound emptiness. Arthur had chosen not to attend. Instead, he remained by Serena's side at Buddy's memorial. A wave of anger washed over Clara as she thought about her father's loyalty to her sister, so easily prioritized over the most significant day of her life. The bitterness that had stained their relationship had reached an all-time high, but Clara was determined not to let it ruin her special day. As guests began to fill the seats, Clara's mind involuntarily drifted back to the phone call that had shattered her heart just weeks prior. Arthur's voice reverberated in her ears, his reasoning for missing the wedding an unbearable mix of manipulation and apathy. "I must be there for Serena. She needs me," he had said. Those words had left her seething with a frustration she could not comprehensively process. Clara confronted her deep-seated feelings about unfairness, a lingering resentment that seemed tangled within her very identity. The ceremony commenced, and the music swelled gently in the background, guiding Clara down the aisle. As she walked, she felt the weight of time bearing down upon her, years of feeling overlooked, unheard, and unvalued flooding back in a rush. Yet each step forward echoed the independence she had fought so hard to claim. Surrounded by a supportive community, she felt them energizing her, their warmth dispelling her lingering doubts. When she reached the altar, her heart raced. Clara gazed into Liam's eyes, capturing a moment of clarity amidst the chaotic emotional tempest swirling within her. In that instant, she realized she was not merely standing there as a daughter. She was a woman who had carved out her path through years of struggle, disappointment, and self-discovery. As the officiant spoke the solemn vows, Clara took in her surroundings, Liam's family and friends, their laughter, and their shared joy enveloping her like a comforting embrace. She felt liberated, her heart soaring with hope and love. With each promise made, she envisioned a future free from the burdens of her past, a life structured around choice and connection, rather than the toxicity that had once suffocated her. Later in the reception, everything felt right, the room buzzing with excitement, love, and laughter. Surrounded by people who cared for her, Clara took a breath and reveled in pure happiness. As she mingled with guests, enjoying their laughter and light conversations, she felt the very essence of a new family forming around her, one built on mutual respect and understanding. However, she remained conscious of the inevitable clash that awaited once the celebration died down. Days after the wedding, her phone buzzed with an incoming text from Serena. With a deep sense of trepidation, Clara hesitated before opening it, bracing herself for anger or tears. The message was as expected. Serena unleashed her fury, accusing Clara of airing their family drama in front of relatives, asserting that Clara lacked compassion for her loss, and demanding that she unblock Arthur. Clara's heart sank. The tightly woven bond of duty and resentment began unraveling in her mind, revealing a crumbling tapestry of family drama and manipulation. But Clara felt empowered, unfazed by Serena's threats. With purpose, she crafted a response. She reaffirmed her decision to prioritize her peace and well-being. The message she sent back was succinct yet powerful. "You and Dad have made your choices. I now prioritize my happiness and will not negotiate my mental health for your comfort. I will only respond if there is an emergency." After she hit send, Clara felt an overwhelming wave of liberation wash over her. She had finally reclaimed her voice after years of being silenced, not by anger nor vengeance, but through an assertion of self-worth and recognition of her own needs. As days turned into weeks, Clara poured herself into her marriage, cherishing the warmth and support of Liam's family. Each moment was a testament to the resilience she had built within herself. She began preparing for her honeymoon, her heart lightened with possibilities of their journey together. With her suitcase half-packed, she glanced at the dreary, cracked facade of her childhood home through the window. She had broken free from that cycle of toxicity. Clara knew she had severed ties with those who had taken her for granted, and she felt an exhilarating sense of freedom in redefining her life on her terms. As she opened her email, glancing through wedding photos sent by friends and family, a smile spread across her face. She reveled in the bright future ahead, confident in her decisions and her courage. Behind her, the winds of change swirled, whispering promises of a new dawn. Clara was no longer just a daughter. She was a woman redefining her narrative, an architect of her happiness, forever leaving behind the entanglements of her past. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey through Clara's world. If you found this story engaging and resonant, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you do not miss our next narrative. Each story explores the complexities of human relationships, the challenges we face, and how we can reclaim our power amidst adversity. If you wish to delve deeper into themes of growth, resilience, and self-discovery, check out our previous stories. Share your thoughts on Clara's journey in the comments below. I would love to hear your perspectives. Remember, the choices we make shape our lives and the paths we take. Let us continue to explore these powerful narratives together. Until next time.